Oh, I needed second, I forgot.
Oh, second.
Second and I.
Aye.
Right.
Well, good evening. I see that you're here, Mr. Garcia. So you're from LULAC. If you want to start with your announcement.
Okay, so thank you everyone for allowing me the time to talk about these two endeavors that we have going on. I am a member of Albuquerque LULAC Council 8057, and we have a couple of partnerships going on with APD right now. But the one, what I want to talk to you guys about is two events that my council is hosting, and in hopes of reaching out to the members of your CPC that log on and listen to this. So the first event we have is a Thanksgiving food drive. Last year, we set out to feed 10 families whole Thanksgiving dinners. We ended up feeding 120.
Wow.
This year, and that was a whole turkey meal, the turkey and all the trimmings. So this year, we want to feed even more. So I'm gonna put my contact information in the chat, and we're just asking for donations of like like those packets of like mashed potatoes, or those little bags of mashed potatoes, or like just cans of yams or cranberry, like anything that would go with a turkey dinner. And then if we, because we're gonna put up the money for the turkeys and all of that. So if we could get the side trimming, stuffing, and all that, we would really appreciate it. Also, another project that we have going, we're calling it the Bear Brigade. Bear Brigade. We're asking for donations of stuffed bears or stuffed animals, and come December, we're gonna give all of those stuffed toys to APD, so that the month of December, whenever the APD field officers encounter any children on the field, they could give them a stuffed animal, a stuffed toy. Like whether they encounter them in a negative way because they had a run-in with the parent, they could try to calm the kid down with a little stuffed bear or something. And it's just a community engagement too. So we're trying to help APD engage the community more as well in that way. So I'm putting my contact information in the chat, and so that's my cell phone number, and then that's the address to my office where I work. Any donations could get dropped off right there as well, or you could call me and we could arrange a pickup somewhere or something. But yeah, so that was pretty much just the announcements that I wanted to make, and I want to thank your CPC for allowing me to come on here and talk about it.
Could you, two
I know you
things.
said, oh, sorry.
I was wondering the acronym for your
LULAC, it stands for League of United Latin American Citizens. We're the oldest Hispanic civil rights group organization in the country. We're also accepting members, and you do not have to be Hispanic or Latin to be a member of LULAC. We're trying to diversify our councils as well. So we're currently accepting members.
And secondly, when do you need the donations for Thanksgiving? When do you need them by?
So we'll probably cut off the donations on November 15th, because we're gonna pass them out on November 20th. So that whole week, we're gonna put the boxes and everything together. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot. Also, if you would like, we'll also take donations of $20 gift cards for grocery stores like Smith's or something, and then we could just give a turkey with that $20 gift card to families, and then they could go buy the trimmings themselves. So whatever's easiest. And my contact info is there, along with my number and my my office address.
Do you have one specific place in the city where people can drop off the donations?
So I put my office address here,
Okay,
just to make it easy. You guys could bring it here, or you can call me, and either I, myself, or somebody from the council can pass by and pick up any donations.
okay,
Also, if you guys want to have one central area in the valley, and then I could just pass by and pick up all donations. However you guys want to go about it, just let me know and give me a call. I just thank you guys for the opportunity to present this and to try to get some donations to help the community out.
thank you, Mr. Garcia. Is Nicole Rogers here? She wanted to speak from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion.
You know what? I don't see her on here, but I'm also part of that endeavor.
Okay,
So if you guys would like, I'll present on that too. So
sure.
starting October 2nd, the Office of Equity and Inclusion and several other departments, Albuquerque Community Safety Department, Family Community Services, my program, the Violence Intervention Program, we're all getting together and we're having these community block parties. They've been done in other cities across the nation. Baltimore comes to mind, and it's a proven crime reduction tactic. So the whole purpose is flooding the community with resources. So we're starting October 2nd at Trumbull Children's Health Center. We're going to concentrate our efforts the whole month of October in the International District. And this is a way for us to bring resources to the community and not the other way around, not making the community go to the resources. So we're bringing the resources to the community so that a lot of people have transportation issues. You know, we just saw the good news that come January 1st, there'll be no more bus fares. So from here until there, people still have transportation issues. So taking the resources to the community and allow them to sign up on the spot. We're gonna have vaccinations there, community-based organizations offering all types of resources. Also, we're gonna have laptops and iPads so that people could apply for the COVID relief funds to pay up to like 10 months of their rent. Oh, here's Nicole now. Hey, Nicole, do you want to take over and talk about the community block parties?
Yes, thank you, Angel. So sorry that I'm late. Thank you so much for the invitation. I was running from another meeting on redistricting. So thank you. My name is Nicole Rogers. I work in the Department of Equity and Inclusion at the City of Albuquerque. And I am, can you hear me okay?
Hear you well.
Great, thank you. Here to talk about community block parties that the city is collaborating with community organizations on. And it is really a crime reduction strategy that spawned the National Night Out that we just had a couple months ago. But the model doesn't work only if you do it one time a year. We have to do it continually and dispatch resources to the community at the same time. So what we decided to do was to start hosting community block parties in different neighborhoods. The model, it works only if you stay in certain neighborhoods for a period of time. So what we've chosen to do was to start in the International District and then move all around, including the Valley, to host community block parties where we'll have fun, resources, services that people can get plugged into on the spot. And so what I mean by resources are things like our emergency rental assistance program. We'll have laptops where people can sit down and actually apply. We'll have childhood development centers that can take applications so that people can get set up with childcare. We'll have food boxes. We're setting up COVID vaccines, even working on some flu shot ones since flu season's coming up, and really just trying to connect folks to the resources that they need. We'll also be partnering with our command centers so that they can come out and give information to the community about what's going on in their neighborhood, maybe bring out some Crime Stopper bulletins so people can know what's going on in their neighborhood, and really be able to spend time with community, with city, with police, all together. But really, it's all about dispatching resources to the community. So we have a link I'll drop in the chat that is our sign-up sheet where community organizations can sign up to have tables and offer resources. Thank you, Angel, to community members. We also have our volunteer services department is also helping us get volunteers for that day, for all of the Saturdays, so that we have volunteers on hand to help us. So it'll be a really great, beautiful collaboration between the community, our city departments. We also have County Commissioner Adrian Balboa on helping us, as well as City Councilor Lancena. So we're really excited. We have a lot of support, a lot of resources to dispatch to the community.
Nicole, could you tell me the venues specific to the Valley?
Sure, let me pull up my list here.
Do you know our boundaries?
Yeah, so I think for the Valley, let's see, let me pull up all of our, and I'm learning which is what part of the city, so.
I can tell you what our boundaries are. We're east I-25, west the river, north we go way up to the city limits, and south we go way down to the city limits. So everything that's in there.
So would that include like Los Padillas Community Center? Or
Yes.
is that, okay, so
Oh,
that's.
Los Padillas, yeah, it should include Los Padillas, but you got county commission there as well, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
so we have, so we'll be in your area January, the month of January, so we'll be at Westside Community Center, Los Padillas Community Center. We're looking at Veterans Memorial Park, which is I think further up on Gibson.
Yeah, it's east of us.
Yeah, and then Manzano Mesa Multi-Generational Center is another
Way
one.
east of us.
That's further, yeah. So I think
Yeah.
yours are West Side Community Center, Los Padillas, Thomas Bell Community Center.
I believe that's in the International District, which is not part of us. Anyway,
Nicole, I think I saw Barrales on there, and that is in the Valley.
Yep, Barelas Community Center, Dennis Chavez. We have
Right.
Johnny Tapia Community Center.
yes,
At Wells Park.
those are all
So-
ours.
Yep, so between December and January, we'll be in your area.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Yeah, which is great because December we have some really fun stuff planned for the holidays. So we'll have
Nice.
different giveaways for kids' presents and trying to get Santa out there and all kinds of fun stuff. So that'll be in your area in December.
Do you need people to donate the giveaways? Or are
We
you going
do,
to
we-
businesses?
We do. We're working with some of the local businesses. We're also, like, for Thanksgiving, we're working with LULAC, who's going to help us through Angel with the Thanksgiving fixings and a $20 gift card for a turkey. So it's going to take all hands on deck. We will appreciate any support for the community because, again, we really want our heart. It's guised as a block party with the fun and the music and the food. But really what it's about is getting resources out. So we have like Serenity Mesa will be there. They've already signed up for every single date for some drug and alcohol interventions. We have Domestic Violence Coalition, Domestic Violence Resource Center, trying to really be thoughtful about the resources based on what we're seeing in APD call data, and making sure we're dispatching the resources that specifically that we're seeing in that neighborhood.
And I got CNM to be out there, and Goodwill Employment Services. They'll be out there signing people up for job training and job placement as well. So
Yes, that's awesome. So it's all hands on deck. We'll take as many people that want a table as possible to really dispatch resources out to the community, especially during these holidays. I say this a lot and people look at me funny, but you know, the song during the holidays, it's the most wonderful time of the year, isn't really true, right? Like crime goes up, child abuse goes up, domestic violence, suicides, all these things go up during the holidays. And so if we can be out just giving people hope and a chance to meet their neighbors. one thing I learned being an enumerator in the census is a lot of people don't know their neighbors anymore. So we're going to be actually doing outreach in the neighborhood the Wednesday before the event. We'll be in the neighborhood flyering, going door to door, telling people about it, because we can't just rely on Facebook and social media to get the word out. We really want to reach the people in the community. So we're going to be out with our volunteers, knocking on doors and flyering and telling people about it the Wednesday before each event.
And it could be a great way for the CPCs to let people know they exist, first of all, and to get them to participate more in the meetings.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
So we'll certainly get a presence at Wells Park.
Yeah, the registration.
At least.
The registration link is there. You guys could just click what day you guys want to show up.
We will.
Thank you guys. Appreciate your time.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you so much. Thank you. Community events we need to know about, and they are important. It does seem to go against our brief, but it really doesn't. We are part of the community. The community is part of us, and we need to be able to have these kind of announcements. So we always invite them, anybody who wants to make an announcement.
Thank you.
Saw Commander Lowe. Commander Lowe, are you here for the Internal Affairs Force Division?
Hi, Rowan. No, let me.
I didn't think you were.
I'm here
I have a
representing the
Commander
deputy
Evans.
chiefs.
I have Acting Commander Evans, but I don't see him on our display.
Let me see if I can. Oh, looks like Kelly has an answer.
No, I always leave the invitations to APD open. We didn't specifically invite everybody, but even if they're not scheduled, I'll leave them open for officers to attend. So that's it.
Apologies, Commander Lowe. So do we not have Commander Evans with us, Acting Commander Evans?
Let me see if I can get a hold of him, Rowan. And I'll answer in the chat.
Okay, and we do have acting Commander Joseph Viers. I believe you're the only one that's not acting. You're actually a commander, and you're here to talk about Vision Zero.
Yes.
Vision Zero.
Hi.
Before you start, I have a question.
Yes.
I hope you're going to tell us what it is, because I am completely mystified by it. I see the television ads and everything, and I don't understand. So if you could tell us what it is, that would be great.
Hopefully I can shed some light on that for you all tonight. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joseph Viers. I'm the commander over the traffic division. One of the efforts that we partake in, one of the city programs that's out there is called Vision Zero. For those of you who aren't familiar with this or haven't had quite that much information on it, basically what it is it's a strategic work group that was put together with numerous entities within the city as well as outside of the city, like New Mexico Department of Transportation, other elements like that. And what our goal is to reduce traffic fatalities by the year 2040 to zero. So obviously, being in the traffic division, we have quite a few traffic fatalities just in Albuquerque every year. This is a nationwide problem. One of the issues is it's always been looked at as something that we can't really do anything about. A lot of people consider crashes accidents and just think it's something that happens and we have to deal with. However, there are things that we can do to reduce these outside of the normal scope that we've been doing traditionally. And that's basically what this work group does. So for example, some of the things that we do are we look at things more than just police, law enforcement, enforcing traffic laws to reduce speeding, pedestrians getting hit by vehicles, bicyclists being hit by vehicles, things of that nature. What we try to do is look at other factors that could be contributing to these serious injuries or fatality crashes, such as road designs, lights, signage, speed bumps, if the speed limit needs to be changed, if there needs to be a road diet. So we do different traffic calming measures. We do road safety assessments, and that's where some of the other folks that are outside of law enforcement take a part in this initiative is like the Mexico DOT gets involved. All of the Department of Municipal Development is involved in this as well. So we go through these crashes once a month. There's actually 2 work groups. One is the Vision Zero Task Force, which is the large group of all the entities involved. The second group is actually a crash review, which consists of myself, Vision Zero personnel, DOT, and some other folks. It's a little bit smaller group. And basically what we do every month is we review the last month of fatal crashes that occurred in Albuquerque. And what we do is we look at those factors of, was there enough lighting in this area? Was this an appropriate place for a crosswalk? Should there have been a traffic signal here? Should additional signage be there? Is there too many lanes for this area? Like, is it a more residential area or a more commercial area? Should the lanes be reduced to kind of reduce that speed and flow of traffic to help pedestrians cross if it's a high pedestrian area? Things of that nature. So basically we just go through these crashes, we review all of them, and then just work together to see what we can do in order to make them safer for the citizens of Albuquerque. So safer for the drivers, safer for pedestrians, safer for bicyclists, just all around. And it might be things outside of the law enforcement scope of just, us being out there writing tickets for things. If it's a larger issue of something we can correct on the back end through road design or something of that nature, that's kind of what our goal and our effort is. So if we can look at these crashes, what's causing them in a more broader scope, and then make those corrections and stuff, that's kind of what we're focused on doing. So that's kind of the overall goal of the Vision Zero, just in a nutshell, to kind of give you guys the insight on that. So if you guys have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those for you guys.
I guess I have a question. There's an intersection in my neighborhood that's actually really dangerous.
Okay.
It's got stops on one part and then no stop signs on. It's not a 4-way stop, and
Okay.
people speed up the area that there isn't a stop. I almost had the front of my car taken off by a car that went so quickly. How would we go about getting that to be a 4-way stop? Would it be your office, or would it be
you could submit either a 311 for that, and that would get sent to us, and we could review something like that. It could also just go to DMD or through the city to bring up, because they do a lot of road assessments. So if people complain about certain traffic areas, they send somebody out, do an assessment, and then they'll do traffic counts, monitor how many vehicles go through there, what the busy times of day are, and then they'll try to look at if that would be beneficial to add stop signs, or if there's too much speeding and it's a certain zone. There has to be certain zones in residential areas that you can apply either speed bumps or speed humps. So there's another mechanism of trying to slow traffic down for areas like that. But they can definitely, if you submit either through 311, that's a pretty easy way to do it online or over the phone. And or you can go straight through the city to do that as well. But those are things we can look at, or the city can look at directly as well.
Yeah, because I know my neighborhood had a whole traffic plan that ran for about seemingly forever, and not everything that was on the traffic plan happened. So maybe we could revisit that plan and see what we could get done. I see a question from Marion Dickinson. She's asking if you can do anything about the traffic signs that are covered by tree branches or by other signs.
Yes, so we address those. So for the Vision Zero specifically, we typically do it through crash review. So any crashes that occurred from that is kind of where we come from. We can definitely look at those. I mean, if you report those through 311 or directly through the city, that's also something that can be done. But those are absolutely something that would be part of this program, is if a sign's covered that people can't see with trees, that needs to be trimmed appropriately. So there's no obstruction on that, just for safety concerns. So to answer the question, yes, we can do it through that way, but typically we don't go through the city looking for those specific things.
Yeah, right.
Vision Zero. So they can be addressed through us. If it's brought to our attention, it's something we can deal with. but we wouldn't actively go look for that just on our own through the work group.
But if it's brought to your attention, would it have a bit more clout?
Yes, I think being brought to that table with that many people and all the stakeholders that are involved in that, I think it's
Mhm.
definitely something that could, be looked at and addressed hopefully quicker than just being submitted through the normal process. So.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? Mike?
Well, just a quick question. I think that's a really good program, but I guess my question is why did the year 2040? Why not sooner? I mean, to target it, this seems like a long way out. And I know it's a long-term problem. It's not something that maybe you could ever solve away completely, but why was that number picked?
Specifically the year 2040, I couldn't give you an answer on that. But being a 20-year, because it started, I believe, back in 2020. So being a 20-year time span from 2020 to 2040 is more due to the amount of road design that may need to take place. So obviously it takes years for different construction projects to go through. If we do a road assessment for safety issues and they need to reduce a lane from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, one, it's going to take funding to do that. So finding a funding stream to make that happen. And then once that funding stream is
You're frozen, Commander Viers.
Let's hope we get him back.
Maybe, maybe not. Apologies, I'm just trying to think something through. Well, we'll wait for him to come back, and Commander Lowe, if you could start speaking to the IAFD, that's a huge section for us because there's so much going on. And sorry to have you put on the spot to have to do it.
No, it's okay. I'm pretty well versed in it, so I feel pretty comfortable. Good evening, everyone. My name is Corey Lowe. I'm the interim deputy chief for the Accountability Bureau with APD. So I essentially oversee everything that is settlement agreement related, to include what I'm going to speak about tonight, which is the External Force Investigation Team, or called EFIT. In July, actually, this all started last year. At the end of last year, we started working with the Department of Justice about trying to improve our level 2 and level 3, which is our more higher level of use of force investigations. The settlement agreement does require us to complete them in a timely manner and also complete and thorough. So we were struggling with that a little bit. There were several reasons for that. If you guys want me to get into that, I'm more than happy to. But really the resolution came down to is bringing in this external force investigation team into the department to kind of help us reevaluate our processes and improve upon our overall investigations, to include having them done within the timelines. So this began in December, and we were able to make a selection in April with Daryl Nair. He is the EFIT administrator, and he was hiring a team to come along with it. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit more. They went go live, I guess, would be July 16th of 2021, and is expected to go through April of 2022, unless we need an extension. The concept behind this is to have, we kind of compare it to shadowing. So for every call out that we have, so if we have a use of force and it rises to a level 2 or 3, our detectives actually go out to the scene, and that's where they start their on-scene investigation, and then they carry it on all the way through interviews, collecting of evidence, and moves all the way up to the chain of command for final approval by a commanding officer. So as a detective goes out, an EFIT person also goes out with them. These are highly, highly experienced people. That we have retired chiefs of police on there. We have commanders who have been in internal affairs in other departments. So we have an extensive amount of experience that they're bringing here to some of our younger detectives, because we do have some very young detectives in IAFD. And while we're trying to do that, we're starting to meet our deadlines. We're doing a much better job than we were July 16th. So we're making a lot of progress. The Department of Justice and the monitoring team meet with the EFIT administrator and his team on a weekly basis, if not more frequent, to kind of catch them up to see if there's any areas that APD is lapsing in, and that we have to take immediate action and try to improve upon. We haven't seen anything detrimental. We do have 87 cases, and this was as of earlier this week, 87 cases since EFIT came live on July 16th that they have gone out to. We do have about a dozen cases that are in the chain of command, which means that we have not missed any deadlines yet, which is exactly what we were trying to accomplish in this project. And as soon as those first initial cases are completed, the monitoring team will take a look, evaluate it to see if the work that's being done meets compliance requirements. And then we start knowing as a department kind of where we need to start heading and moving towards it. An additional part of having EFIT here is trying to get the proper number of investigators into IAFD. Currently, that number is 25. That was included in the stipulated order. We just hit 25 on August 28th. That is comprised of both sworn investigators and civilian. And so just keep in mind, we are actually pioneers when it comes to bringing civilian force investigators into the department to conduct force investigations on sworn officers. So far, that is working pretty well. It is a steep learning curve for the civilians who come in. Their experience range from working with CYFD before this. Some of them have prior law enforcement experience. Some are coming from the defense attorney side of the house in the city. So, I mean, we're getting a cross section of applicants, which is amazing. And I think that the hardest part that they're trying to grasp is the expectations and all our policies that APD has. So I don't want to speak, I can speak for a very long time on this topic, but I wanted to give a general overview and ask any questions if there were any. But ultimately, it's going very well. And EFIT has the ability to take cases from us if they see that we're just not going to make the deadline, or it looks like we have substandard investigations, and that has yet to happen. So out of 87 cases, I take a lot of pride in that. And I think IFD has worked very hard to get where they're at.
This is a question kind of out of left base for you, and you might not know anything about it. Is there left base? I don't know. I don't know baseball.
Left field.
Left field. Thank you. I should know baseball. Attorney General Garland has said that the consent decrees are going to be modified from here on in, and that one of the goals is to make them not take so long. And we've been seven
Yes, ma'am, going on 7 years.
We're on 7 years. So that seemed to be the kind of cut-off point from what I read about Attorney General Garland, what he seemed to be saying. Have you had any information about that from anywhere? Or
Yes, we definitely read that, you know, because that obviously sparks a lot of concern, right? That brings a lot of attention for us. You know, that does count for cases in the future. And however, you know, I think we're going to try to see what we can do and work with the Department of Justice to make sure that we maximize our time with them and get exactly where we need to be as far as operational compliance. So I definitely don't want to make any promises. I definitely want to we're just going to, as far as my group is concerned, we're going to continue the path until we're told not to anymore. But yes, I mean, there is a lot of information in that memo that will impact potentially future consent decrees. We're just not certain if APD will be any part of that because we're currently in it.
Well, as AUSA Martinez says in the chat, that it does apply prospectively, but one can hope. I mean, it's just going to make APD work even harder at being done sooner, right?
Yes, ma'am. And you know, with really EFIT, with the stipulated order, we recognize that use of force is the one area that we're really trying to work hard to improve upon. and having a full team part of that process has been very, very helpful. And I hope that this is going to be a good way for us moving forward and meeting all the requirements of the settlement agreement.
I just need another review of the 1, 2, 3 uses of force.
Of course.
Because the one still confuses me. There's no contact with number 1, right? No physical contact?
No, there's potentially contact. So there's 2 ways that a level 1 would occur. And one of them is a show of force, which is where there is no contact. But that is if I have my taser, and I'll use you as an example, Rowan. But if I have to point my taser at you, that's a show of force, but it still counts as a level 1.
Okay.
But if I make contact with you and I cause transitory pain, and it's just like resisted handcuffing, like you're just simply not going into handcuffs, and I have to overcome that resistance to do there, but there's no injury there, it's transitory pain, that'll fall under a level 1. And then after that, for level 2s and 3s is anything that has a complaint of injury, an injury, and it depends on the type of injury and how many applications of force or types of force that raises it from a 2 to a 3. The highest one obviously is an officer involved shooting, which would be a level 3.
And that a fatality is included, because when we get the use of force reports and we see there's 2 3s, 3 3s, it's not a given that, is it a given that there's a very serious injury when there's a 3?
No. So a good example is kind of what we were just talking about. So if I had to do an arm bar, which is it's a low level tactic to kind of just control someone, but it is overcoming resistance. If you are in handcuffs when that happens, that's automatically a level 3. So that's where that variance comes from, a low level where it's essentially a level 2 with the exception of maybe you were level 1 or 2, but you were in handcuffs, that goes to a level 3 all the way up to an officer involved shooting. So when you see in your area command on a given month that you had 3 level 1s, it can range from point A to point B as far as the seriousness of the injury.
And that's a simple, well, not a simple matter, but that's a disciplinarian matter for the commander, the level 1s.
No, for level 1s, that it's not a disciplinary matter until we find a policy violation, which in turn requires an investigation. But the force of the use of force, the investigation of the force itself, the level 1s just simply stay in the area commander division in which the area command happened. Yes.
That's what I meant.
Exactly.
It's down to the commander, it's down to the command area. And
Yes.
the length of time spent reporting and doing paperwork on a level 1, is it arduous or is it comparatively shorter?
It's supposed to be short. Well, so the requirement is slightly different. For a level 1, the timeline to get it done from the supervisor to the chain of command is 30 days, whereas a level 2 or 3 can go up to 90 days, or if a 30-day extension exists, 120, because it typically takes more resources to investigate more serious uses of force. But yes, I mean, they still are very timely, and we're working with the Department of Justice right now to try to streamline those processes so we can try to get our officers and our sergeants back on the street quicker.
Vicki Williams, what is the approximate percentage of excessive use of force for all the use of force investigations in the last year?
I know this was asked at another one of the CPCs. I know that we're still above 95% of our completed cases, but we still, I don't know the exact answer, and I can get you on that because I would need Commander Evans here to be able to answer that.
Okay, that would be helpful.
Sure.
So, I know that there was sort of a general report. Do you feel like you've given some kind of insight to what's going on right now? Do you feel optimistic about what's happening right now?
As far as EFIT is, I feel very optimistic. We have a very good working relationship. I think it goes from all facets. You know, I know EFIT has a good relationship with the independent monitoring team. I know he has one with DOJ, and then he has one with APD. So I think that's a really good start. I think we do have a long way to go because it's one thing to have a good shadow there, to have them always there, but the concern is always like when EFIT leaves, are we going to be able to do it on our own. And we're really working hard getting everyone the training, staffing, making sure that they are, when they do interviews, they're clean interviews. We're not asking leading questions. We are trying to be as unbiased as possible, which is the hardest part of what we're trying to accomplish here. And so we're hoping over the next 9 months that we're able to show that to EFIT and the DOJ and the monitoring team.
Thank you so much. We were expecting Commander Torres from the Real-Time Crime Center, the RTC, and he has not appeared. So we're looking at a pretty short meeting here tonight. If we can just, I guess, go straight into, unless Miss Maestas, are you here? Elaine Maestas? I know you do attend our meetings on a regular basis. So if you're here, it would be lovely if you introduce yourself, but you are set for October. So perhaps you would prefer to do it then. It's Maestas who will introduce herself next month, works with APD Forward, and will delineate what APD Forward does and is. We should really have a presentation, and we will.
Does anyone have questions for Lieutenant Viers?
Yes, Commander, Acting Commander Viers. Does anybody have any more questions for him?
I have a question. Do you set up the motorcycle officer radar patrols? I noticed we had one in the Wells Park neighborhood on 6th and Kinley, which I was pleased to see the motorcycle officers there, because that 5th and 6th streets are they're like speed zones or racetracks. So do you set up those the motorcycle officers for that purpose?
Yes, ma'am. Those actually fall under me, all the motorcycle officers as well as the DWI officers. We usually get that information through several facets. We either use the Real-Time Crime Center for statistical data that shows where there's a lot of crashes, where there's a lot of reports of speeding. We use the 311 complaints that are submitted, complaints that are submitted through the substations locally within the area commands. Those get sent to us. And then we develop all of our operational plans and then deploy our officers out to those areas based on that information. So we try to address all the complaints that come in as best as we can. We currently have 27 officers between the motor officers and the DWI officers. So we try to manage throughout the whole city with those resources to cover all those complaints. So yes, we do.
And do you also set up those speed limit signs, the flashing signs that inform people when they're going over the speed limit? I've seen some of those in my neighborhood also.
The traffic division does not. Those are typically done through each individual area command. So each area command has several of those devices that they use, and then they can deploy them throughout the area command based on complaints and other data that they receive as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Hey, as I say, this is going to be a very short meeting. I'm sure everybody's happy to know that. Sorry, Dick, do you have a question?
Well, I want to return to Ms. Lowe, if she's
Commander Lowe.
Oh, Commander Lowe, I'm sorry. If she's still here,
I'm here.
Oh, good. I'm sorry, I'm a little thick, but you run the acronyms by a little quickly for me.
Sure.
The external use of force monitoring team is called what?
It's called EFIT, so it's the External Force Investigation Team.
Okay. And they shadow the detectives and also review the use of force investigations independently.
Yeah, yes, in a way. So they're look at them like training officers, kind of like you have a recruit officer and a training officer, and they're pretty much the same. So they'll run an entire investigation with them. So they work with them on collecting evidence. They work on them with doing the admonishments, preparing for interviews. So they will actually sit in with the in the interviews, have discussions with the detectives on how to do a little bit more case preparation, typing it up, making sure it flows, right? Because we want everything in a chronological order that includes all our evidence, all our findings, any statements that were made by civilian witnesses to include the individual in which force was used. So all the way through that. And then when the investigator is done, it gets moved up to a supervisor. And then there is a supervisor and an EFIT supervisor as well. They pretty much do the same thing. They look at the case all the way together. So there's never two investigations going on at once. It's one case, one investigation, just having shadows all the way through the process. And that goes all the way up the chain.
And that the EFIT component is 25 people. And you just, am I correct? And that's the last hire was in August. So you're in full strength now?
So there's the Internal Affairs Force Division is the APD portion of it. That's what's required to have 25 investigators. But
Okay.
EFIT has an administrator. They basically have a mini chain of command. They have an administrator, they have a supervisor or manager, then they have a supervisor, and then they actually have teams. So they run 3 teams at a time. I'm sorry, 3 teams, 1 team at a time. So there's always a team in Albuquerque with our IFD people. And there's always 2 teams back where most of them are virtual. Most of them do not live in Albuquerque, but they're there working constantly via Zoom, telephonic communication, working with them side by side. And then they'll switch out as, because we can't have them on 24 hours a day. So we kind of switch them out, and then one team will leave and one team comes in. Meanwhile, IFD has their 25 people, but just keep in mind, we don't have all 25 doing active cases because we have a very strong onboarding process. So we have one when we have sworn officers coming into the division. And then we also have an even bigger one for civilians because they just don't know APD all that well. So we want to get them really well versed on our processes, our rank system, just basic training that we would normally have sworn attend. They actually go to parts of our lateral academy so they can kind of see law blocks. They can learn how APD does business on a day-to-day basis. So there's actually 2 different components here. We have IFD, which belongs to APD, and then we have EFIT, who is only external. Those are our specialists that we work with.
And the EFIT component, it's not taking any officers off the street, is it? I mean, these are people who are dedicated to that unit, and they're not officers who would be patrol officers normally.
Right. EFIT is not part of APD at all.
Okay.
They are all civilians that have just law enforcement experience. As far as IFD, we do have sworn people there, absolutely, that if they weren't in IFD, they may or may not be responding to calls for service, kind of depending if they're in specialized units. But that is a sworn capacity that we're trying to add civilians to it so we can try to eventually free up some of our sworn and move them back to where they can take calls for service in the field.
Approximately how many sworn officers are currently assigned to IFD?
I'm going to do a ballpark here, and I think it's 16.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So,
think it's 16 because I believe we have somewhere around 8 or 9 civilian positions that we just filled.
we've heard some criticism recently that CASA is taking too many officers off the street. And I imagine part and parcel of that criticism is that also they're spending too much time on paperwork, use of force investigations. So if it isn't part of that calculus, I imagine the 16 officers on IFD could fall within that criticism.
Yes, you're correct. And I think that is where, Chief Medina has been very vocal on trying to try this civilian investigator position out. because if it proves successful, then we can have more of a balance of what's in IFD and then what's in the field. But we want to really be methodical and slow and taking a look to make sure that we don't put a whole bunch of civilians in there and then we just watch them fail. I said, so we're being very cautious on how we address that. But yes, that is, you could put them in that bucket.
I mean, other police departments must have IFDs. I mean, they all must, I imagine.
Not necessarily. So most of them that have consent decrees have some sort of level of use of force investigations, but it varies depending on the city, the requirements of their settlement agreement, and then how they just kind of build themselves out in each department they're set up. So there's several, we actually have levels very similar to several other departments. Some of them do have what is considered, they call them force investigation teams, kind of like we used to have FIT. It's the same concept. They'll still have a team specifically designed to do force investigations. So we're very common when it comes to other departments under consent decrees.
I mean, I guess one thing I'm interested is the drain on those departments, those other cities that are either under a consent decree or aren't and have IFD anyway. Is the drain on the sworn officers, the number of them, as large as it is in Albuquerque, or is Albuquerque in the ballpark?
You know, that's a good question because I actually don't know the other departments' numbers. I don't know exactly how many, because you're going to also have to take the population as a whole with their entire department and then their percentage that they would put to here or put towards essentially a force investigation team. I can get that because I mean, we are in contact with several other departments under settlement agreements, just so we can try to work together to try to problem solve instead of trying to recreate the wheel every time.
Okay, there's a question from Mike Subtle, but before you ask it, Mike, I just want to say, I have known you as Lieutenant Lowe. I have known you as Commander Lowe, and now I have to know you as Deputy Chief Lowe, and I just want to congratulate you on your new title and apologize for calling you Commander.
Oh, no apologies, ma'am. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Did you just call me ma'am?
I'm sorry, Rowan.
Just, it scared me. Okay, Mike, what's your question?
Well, just a quick question. You know, one of the things that we hear a lot about is the morale of the officers that, you know, you're always hearing that the morale is at a low point, you know, all this kind of thing. So how do you feel about the effect, or how is this affecting morale, and how are the officers, how do they feel about this type of investigation, you know, on them? You know what I mean? Like, is this a positive thing? Are they accepting it? Is this a good thing? You know, is it, if morale is an issue, how does this play into improving morale, or does it, or is it irrelevant?
Well, it is definitely a requirement. So, I mean, it is something that is, we have to get it done. But I think what we're trying to do now is really work with the Department of Justice on streamlining some of these so we can try to figure out how to do a proper balance, right? Like we're really striving to do a balance of what we need to do to accomplish the settlement agreement. And of course, we do care about morale. I mean, like these are officers that are having to respond to calls for service and still do their job, but you know, there is an oversight entity over APD, and we're trying to work through that the best that we can. You know, it has been a little bit frustrating because we're still working through it, which is a hard part of this. Is we're learning by mistakes. Sometimes we're trying to overcome all this kind of stuff. So we're really working on being transparent with our officers, kind of letting them know what's going on when we can. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on a day-to-day basis that we don't want to try to tell them something's going to happen and then it just doesn't. And so, you know, we have to be very careful of over-promising and under-delivering as well from our side, from the executive staff and command staff in general. But when it comes down to it, there's requirements that we have to meet. And in order to meet those, we have to get certain steps done. So I think, of course, there's a little bit of frustration, but I think we're slowly overcoming that with time. I think it looks a lot better than it did in 2019. We took a little bit of a dip, obviously, in 2020, and trying to overcome that is often very difficult. But I can tell you that we are working very, very hard to try to make things easier and try to get our officers back in the field and raise that morale as much as we can. Our job isn't to discipline them out. It is definitely not to scare them, but we do have to do things right, and we have to make sure that we abide by the settlement agreement.
Right.
I have
just
another
wonder kind of what
question.
their attitude is,
Oh,
towards-
sorry, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just meant like, what's their attitude towards this thing? Are they like, one more thing, or is it, I mean, are they cooperating with it? Are they resisting it? Are they hiding things, or what, what's going on with that? Because morale seems to be a real issue in the department. It just seems like anything that's going to reduce morale, required or not, has to be looked at in terms of what the effect on morale is.
Right. As far as use of force investigations, we've been doing that almost since the beginning of the settlement agreement. So it's actually nothing new. It's just become a more highlighted area. I will say, as far as EFIT being here, we actually have been receiving more positive feedback from the officers, because they kind of have a little bit more clarity as to why we're doing certain things, what needs to be done, and just being able to have that open communication when they're on scene, I think has brought down a little bit of the skepticism and fear of having EFIT here. And that will just go on with time. EFIT has met with, at least the administrator, has met with all of the area commanders, kind of just trying to explain to them the process and what the goal behind this project is. So overall, I think our officers have been accepting of the process. I think they're obviously skeptical because it still just makes them nervous, but I think they're overall accepting of the experience that are coming in. I mean, we have decades of experience with the EFIT team that I think kind of lowers that hesitancy to some level.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question in the chat. Prior to the CASA, did APD have a use of force investigation division?
No, we had started heading that way a little bit when we started recognizing that the investigation was going its way and we were starting to look at it. But no, when we used to have uses of force, they were a very simple couple page form, hard copy for the most part, some electronic. So the processes itself wasn't ideal. The investigations are definitely a lot more robust and a lot more intense than prior to the CASA.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Curious about the civilian investigators that are being trained and they're also participating in the investigation. Are they employees of APD?
The civilian investigators are employees. Yes, sir. So they were hired on specifically as civilian investigators, with their job description is very similar to any other IA sworn investigator. So their requirements and their standards are the same, but we just were taking a little bit more time with onboarding them.
Do they report to you?
So they report to they have what's called squads inside IFD, very similar to squads out in the field, right? So every squad reports to a sergeant. So a civilian investigator will be intertwined with sworn investigators in a team, and they will report to a sergeant. So they do have a sworn supervisor over them.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Vicky Williams, who asked the question about APD having a use of force investigation division before CASA, thanks you for your answer.
Thank you, Vicky.
Anybody else? Anything else? Thank you, Deputy Chief Lowe, for stepping in at the last minute like this, and thank you for your concise and intelligent information. EFIT is sort of strange animal that we're still getting used to. And actually, what kind of impact do you expect for it to have on the public? It will make investigations easier, free up more officers, anything like that?
I'm hoping to make the investigations not only easier, but more timely. The more timely we have our investigations, the quicker we can have a good turnaround. So when we're talking with the, when the public asks us, questions like Vicky asked, hey, how many uses of force in the last year do we have in or out of policy? How many, like a lot more in-depth questions that can come to us, we can have more readily available. Because, even for me, when you're asking about the last year, I know that we suffered from, quality investigations for a while, and sometimes we're overturning some of those findings now, which is more of a delay. So what we're hoping with EFIT, we have more real-time solutions as issues come up. And, if we see departmental issues, we catch them much, much earlier on. So I'm hoping EFIT will help the community as well. And I know that the administrator has been more than willing to answer questions as well, because we understand that this is expensive, it's taken a lot of time, and the resources that are brought in were pretty hefty.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything else going?
Yes, I was just wondering about the respect level by people who are working with the EFIT team. You said we have some heavy resources. So the members of the EFIT team, do they have the background that the officers that are involved in investigations really respect and take the information in as helpful? I'm just curious about that, the buy-in with EFIT.
Of course, it's a very valid question because I was the acting commander over IFD when they brought EFIT in, and we were creating the contract for all this to get done. And that was absolutely one of my concerns. Always having someone in was very, very difficult. We were very methodical in bringing in our squads, a lot, updating them, telling them what it was going to be about, trying to explain what the process was going to look like, which is a lot more difficult when you actually try to put it into reality, right? So once we started bringing EFIT in, they started meeting with the division themselves. It has been much better than I thought it was going to be. By far, the majority are very, very accepting and have learned so much. And I talked to a couple of them a few weeks ago, just like running in the hallway, just, hey, how's it going? And they're like, I would have never thought to do some of the things they told us to do, because they didn't know. These are younger officers, they're inexperienced. And if we're doing the same investigations over and over again, well, we won't see the improvements needed. So having them come in, it's been very, very well accepted with IFD. And that goes from detective all the way up to the chain of command.
That's great. Good to know.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Well, it's good that it's in place and that it's happening. How long did it take to actually put in place and make it happen?
It took a while. We started this somewhere at the end of 2020, working with the DOJ just on the basic concept. By the time it was all over, we did what was called a request for letters of interest. So we had to publish it on and put it out basically for bid, essentially it. Then we had to select them. Then we had to interview them. We had the DOJ part of the interview process. Once we selected it, we had to get the contract. Once we got the contract signed, we had to get it through City Council. Once we got it to City Council, then we started working with them on just the basic investigative process. It's a narrative that was filed with the court. We've already revised it and about to file another one with the court, which is like streamlining that process and cleaning it up. So we worked with them. And then again, it took us from then until July 16th to actually get them go live, because he had to hire people. He had to advertise his own people as well and bring them all on. So it took a little, actually, he worked very quickly. He looked about 8 weeks, I would think that it took him to get almost fully staffed. So it was a very quick process, but long at the same time, because we had a lot of stuff to get taken care of. So if you guys are interested, we can send you our investigative process that was filed with the court, so you can just get a basic understanding from when a use of force happens to when a case is closed, which it sounds like it's very simple. It's a few pages long because of how many steps there are, because we want it to be all inclusive in that process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it would be useful to see that process, the write-up that you were talking about. I think that would be helpful.
Okay, we will make sure we'll get it to all the CPCs, just so everyone has it, just so you can take a look and kind of get a good grasp of everything that is included in a use of force investigation.
Thank you.
Of course.
I haven't meant to seem like I'm hurrying anybody. So I'm so grateful for the questions that have come up. And I'm so grateful to Deputy Chief Lowe for answering them all so, well, brilliantly. There's no other way to describe it. So if there's nothing else, we will move on to local command area issues and concerns and end early. So Laura.
Hi,
crime report.
everybody.
This is Laura Trujillo. She's the crime prevention specialist for the Valley Area Command.
I do have your property crimes for the entire Valley Area Command from 8/20 to 9/20. There was 1 burglary, all other, 34 commercial burglaries, 12 residential burglaries, 43 vehicle burglaries, 79 auto thefts, 31 recovered vehicles, 8 commercial robberies, and 2 robberies by gunpoint. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Well, I guess I have a couple. One is, as always, what were the most impacted areas? You know, I'm going to ask that.
Yes. And let me get that for you. So the hot spots for this time period were between west of I-25, south of Lomas, north of Iron, and east of 12th Street.
Whoa. That's a very concentrated area.
That's where we had the most.
That's unusual, isn't it?
There's little hotspots within that area. It's
Yeah.
not all just one specific location. So, but they were mostly in that area. If that
I'm
makes
just
sense.
surprised. Yeah, no, I just had never heard of the hotspots being in a comparatively small area like that. That is not a huge area by any means.
Yeah, and it usually changes month by month, as you know.
That's what I thought. And also there was one other question. Oh, well, I guess it seemed more extensive than other months. I seemed you had a lot more going on, a lot more in the report. Is that right? Or does that seem standard?
I didn't look at last month before I came, but it does appear like it is busier this month. So I agree with you on that.
And I guess one other question I have that I've always had and I've never properly understood. I had an incident in my other house many, many years ago. A gentleman came into my house and took my wallet, and I was there. So does that make it a robbery or does that make it a burglary?
Lieutenant Chacuan, can you speak on that? I don't want to give an incorrect answer.
Everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Rowan, it depends on if your wallet was taken by force.
Oh, okay.
So it was not taken by force, but they entered your residence without your authorization, then that would be a burglary.
Okay. Okay. Wow. See, that's what's always confused me. I've always assumed that a robbery means it's someone in the house, even if they haven't accosted you or done anything to you. And a burglary is something that happens when you're not in the house. But you're
Right.
saying that's not the case. And is burglary a lesser crime?
No, they're both felony crimes. It depends on the force that was used.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions for Laura. Does anybody else have a question for Laura? Hi, Lieutenant Chacon.
Hello.
Welcome to the Valley.
Well, thank
Apparently.
you. It's been a while. I haven't been back here since 2016.
Commander Norris is very excited about having you.
Well, thank you. That's good to hear.
Anybody else have a question for Laura?
Does anybody else have a question for Lieutenant? No?
I do.
Go ahead.
The ECHO meeting today was talking about drugs and drug dealing in the city, and I just want to clarify, if we see, I sit at my window and I have a view out to the street. If I see a drug deal going down right in front of me, which I have done, do I call 911 or do I call 242 cops?
The way that I tell our citizens to report a crime is if there is a life-threatening situation,
okay,
either if it's involving yourself or another citizen, by all means, please call 911. If it's something you are observing, possibly a drug transaction, I would recommend 242 cops. However, again, if there is some sort of violent crime that's occurring at that time, please call 911.
And also, it's useful to call 242 cops, which I keep reminding people about, because you need it for the statistics.
Correct.
You need it for the increased patrol and stuff. So
right.
No matter what happens, and you will get a response, but it's going to take a long time. But at least it will be in the statistics.
That's correct. And I always throw the caveat in there, please. We always want you to report stuff. However, do not place yourself in danger by going outside and intercepting something that we should handle. So I always have to put that out there as well.
Another thing that came up during the last ECHO meeting is I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning a few Saturdays back to gunshots. To 6 gunshots that seemed so close to my house that I could smell the after smoke, if there's such a thing. But it was, and I asked the ECHO meeting what I should do, and I thought 242 cops, obviously, so they have the statistical information, and the people who fired the shots are probably long gone. But they said 911. Would that be correct?
You know, we do get both types of calls. We do have our shot spotter system that automatically picks up the gunfire, and that's it's coded as a priority 2 in our call system. I don't know if you're familiar with our priority system, but it does bump up the call, which bumps up our response time. So if it's a priority 2, we stop what we're doing and we go to that call. So again, please don't place yourself in danger. But those types of calls, if you call them in, chances are the dispatcher will bump up that call to a priority 2.
Okay. So actually, now you mentioned that, it can't hurt to go through the priority system again, because I believe there's been some changes. So if you could break them down for us.
Sure. The priority 1 calls are our life-threatening calls, such as an armed robbery where the offender either threatens somebody with a firearm that is observed or utilizes that firearm in the commission of some sort of crime. That's going to be where there's injury, potential for serious injuries. That's our priority 1 system. The priority 2s are shots fired call unless someone has been struck by those gunshots, as well as it can be an accident with injuries. There's several, so it's injury related. It can be anyway. Domestic violence calls are automatically priority 2 calls. Again, so when those come in, whether it's a verbal dispute between 2 parties or whatnot regarding domestic violence, or whether it's actual physical violence, those are coded as priority 2s now. So again, when those calls come out, we stop what we're doing and we go to that type of call. Our priority 3 calls are going to be our property crime, little offender information. It's happened after the fact. Again, this is a brief summary. I mean, it's I don't envy our call takers having to code all this stuff and sort through what is pertinent and what is not in a matter of seconds, but they do a great job. But your priority 3, like I was saying, is more your property crime. And then you have our priority 4 calls, which can be an alarm call. Sometimes those alarm calls, depending on if it's a glass break or a citizen that has something like life alert in their residence, those get bumped up to a priority 2. So alarm calls can be either a priority 4 or even a priority 2.
Mm-hmm. So just to clarify this, so some people might not understand this, they come home, they've been robbed or burgled, one of the two, and they call 911, as you do, because you feel so violated.
Mm-hmm.
And sure. you are a priority 3 because you've been burgled and robbed and there's no sign of the person who did it. And so what I guess those people need to understand is there could be an officer on his or her way to you because you're a priority 3. But if a 1 or a 2 comes up, they have to turn around. And that I think is hard for people to understand.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't blame the frustration on that example that you just gave. It depends on, let's say the homeowner walks into their residence, notices that things are in disarray, and immediately backs out of the residence and calls 911. Well, we don't know if the offender is still inside, so that would bump up the priority because we don't want the citizen to go in. Although I get it, I understand it's their home. They want to see what happened. We always encourage those citizens to wait for us so that we can clear the residence. So in that particular case, those are usually coded as priority 2 calls. Oftentimes what will happen though is the homeowner will go in to their residence and go through each room. You know, sometimes they are looking for an offender, but oftentimes it's just so because they want to know what was taken. So if that residence has been cleared, oftentimes those do get bumped down to a priority 3.
And sometimes you can wait for a really long time for the police to come, and people don't understand that. And people have insisted, individuals, community members have insisted to me that their call was never, ever responded to. And yet, is that true, that calls never, ever get responded to, or is every call responded to?
We respond to every call. Is it in a timely manner? No. Unfortunately not. I wish I had a better answer than that. Sometimes our calls do hold until the next shift can come in, and we're talking about the priority 4 and priority 5 calls.
Oh, there's a priority 5? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yes, and sometimes those can be something like a neighbor dispute where the neighbor is posting harassing messages on Facebook. That's the example that just came to mind because we just had that one. But the priority 1s and priority 2s will get answered. They get answered right away. You know, I wish, like all of us, I wish we did have more officers to respond to these calls. It's coming, hopefully soon. But yes, sometimes our calls will wait until the next shift comes in.
Michael,
and I just wanted to remind you, Rowan, that if you call in and want to remain anonymous, you will never know that the officer showed up. So if you do want to know that the officer does show up, don't remain anonymous.
Correct.
Okay. Mike, you know, I can't pronounce your last name, Mike Krzyzewski, has said to everyone there's a Facebook page that gives a very helpful post about calling 911 versus 242 cops. So if you check that out, you might get a better idea about the differences. There was another question, but it's driven out of my head. Oh, I just wanted to say, someone that's left their car unlocked and wide open and has an antique watch stolen from it, is that a priority 5 or 4?
And I'm sorry, you did say that the watch was inside the vehicle.
Inside the vehicle that was unlocked, yes.
Okay, that's going to be if the offender is no longer present, let's say that they walk outside of their residence, 2 hours after they've gone, they've come from outside of their house into their driveway and notice that that watch is gone. We can possibly establish a time frame as to the last time that they did see their watch, but it would be a lower priority unless that offender was still actively trying to sift through the glove compartment, or if neighbors saw the offender walking down the street and they provided a direction of travel for the officers, that bumps up the priority system. It bumps up the priority of the call.
I guess that leads to the question about pawn shops, because the individual was pretty convinced that it ended up in a pawn shop and tried to go to pawn shops to check. And the individual was told that there was a specific program and that the individual couldn't go in and check for herself. So is there still, I know this isn't a command area specific, but do you know if there's still checking in pawn shops and stuff?
To be honest, I don't know if that, I know we have an organized crime unit that did have a section of the pawn shop detail. However, I don't know how actively staffed that unit is at the moment. I don't know if there's anyone else that can speak to that, but I don't know the exact answer at this point.
Well, it does seem that our command area has more of a wealth of pawn shops than most others. Needless to say, the individual has learned her lesson and locks her car door every time she leaves her car. Yeah, Laura, I know you know who the individual is. Yeah, not my finest hour.
We had that discussion, Rowan.
Yeah, we did.
I just wanted also to remind you that if you don't want to wait on the line for 242 cops and you don't have offender information, you can report it through the app, the ABQ Police app, or you can call later on to 242 cops when it's less busy and report that to our TRU unit if you don't have offender information.
Okay, any other questions for Lieutenant Chacon? Any other questions at all about our crime statistics, about anything?
I just wanted to throw out there that I am trying to verify block captain, if the block captains are still active or inactive. If any of you on here are block captains and you have not received a newsletter or any communication from me, please email me and let me know that you are an active block captain, and I will put you on the list. And my email, I'll put it in the chat, but it is ljtruhill@cabq.gov. And the reason I'm checking the status right now is because I am trying to currently assign officers to those block captains.
I have a box of envelopes to apply for Neighborhood Watch, to apply for your block to be Neighborhood Watch. So if anybody's interested in getting one, just email me at cpcvalley gmail.com, or you can contact Laura for them. Edwina and I kind of operate as de facto block captains or neighborhood captains for our area. We operate through Nextdoor or by word of mouth. People come and ask us things, but it would be nice to see more of our areas become neighborhood blocks. It really would.
And then another reminder about that too, your block captain is not responsible for reporting what you're witnessing or your crimes.
Right.
You still have to call in to 242 cops or 911 if it's an emergency to report that, but just let your block captain know as information so they can let the other residents around the area know too.
I'm wondering how you know who your block captain is. I don't know if we have one in our neighborhood.
Do you see any of the neighborhood watch signs posted on your street?
No.
Okay, then you probably don't have a block captain. But if you're interested in starting up a neighborhood watch program, go ahead and contact me and then we can set that up for you. And it's what you want to make of it. You can have as much communication as you want, or communicate through email, through text, have meetings. It's all up to you on what you want to do with your neighborhood watch.
And the $90 for the signs is still in place?
No, they're actually less expensive now.
You know how much?
I want to say about $40.
Okay, well that makes it a lot easier. That's
Yeah.
one of the things that's held me back.
And what I've told when I'm giving the meetings, I do tell them that maybe all the residents down the street can pitch in like $5. That way it's not a burden on one person. So maybe everybody can pitch in to get that sign.
So how large are the areas usually? You're saying block, but is it?
They could be up to 25 homes.
Oh, okay.
And then if there's more or less, we can work with that too.
Could 2 blocks be a neighborhood watch block, or is it better to just stay with one?
How many homes would that be? Do you know?
Do you include apartments? Is each apartment a single home?
The apartments have crime-free multi-housing, so they're different than a neighborhood watch. So
Okay.
they would not be included.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
And for that crime-free multi-housing, the apartment manager would just have to contact me and we can start that up with them too. It's like a neighborhood watch, but just for apartments.
okay. Okay. Because I only have 5 residents on my block.
And how many on the next one?
Oh, actually less. And that block is
We can put them
interesting.
I don't see why we couldn't put them together. I can check with the senior crime prevention specialist, but I don't think it would be a problem.
Okay. I'll look
So if
into
you want
it.
to send me the information.
Okay, I'll check it out. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else from anybody? Oh, Kelly, I'm sorry, you wanted to do a PSA.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. Lieutenant Tapia sent me this. And I guess the Albuquerque Police Department would like to cordially invite CPC members and their families and also the community to attend the bingo night we'll be hosting to sponsor Walk to End Alzheimer's Team. That is a bingo night that is going to be on October 1st, 5:30 p.m. The sales begin, 6 o'clock p.m. The games of bingo begin, and that once again benefits the Alzheimer's Association in Albuquerque. And also there's going to be a walking event October 9th, 2021. Registration 9 a.m., ceremony 9:30, and the walk begins at 10 a.m. That's going to be at Mariposa Basin Park at 4900 Cachinas Southwest Kitchener Northwest and Taylor Ranch. Excuse me, let me just put this information up here. And anybody who has any information, any questions will be able to get a contact in.
Where is the bingo night taking place? Or is it Zoom?
Yeah, go ahead.
Lieutenant Tapia, hi, where is the bingo taking place?
It's going to be at the Los Turones Community Center.
Oh, cool, thank you.
Right here in the area command.
Super, thanks a lot.
Okay.
Anything else? I really hope I'm not sounding rude or impatient. I just want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. And in theory, we have a whole half hour to play with, or we can just adjourn early. So if anybody wants to use some of the half hour for any questions or any issues or concerns, then go for it. Otherwise, we will adjourn. Anybody?
Right. I guess that sounds good.
Okay, we're going to adjourn early today. RTC, the Real-Time Crime Center, had asked to be here tonight, and unfortunately, they didn't come. So that's one of the reasons that we're adjourning a bit early. So thank you so much. I hope that some of the meeting was interesting and rewarding and worth knowing about. And please let your friends, let your neighbors, let anybody else know about these meetings, because they're your meetings. They're your chance to talk to the police. They're your chance. You can say whatever you think to them, and many people have. It's not, a love fest. It's not always a love fest. I like to think tonight was a love fest, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes we're very honest and we say what needs to be said. And if you want to say what needs to be said, if you want to come and be part of this and bring people with you, please do. And thank you very much to the fellow council members who I never had a chance, who I never introduced. I do apologize. If you want to, our meeting in October is still kind of up in the air, what we're going to be having it about. We will be meeting and discussing that, and as soon as we know, we'll send out an email. So thank you, everybody, and motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor, do I have a second? I have Jacqueline as a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Lieutenant Tapia, for her patience.